let's move along to CJ Carr, the Irish quarterback commit in this particular class. It's been, at least from my standpoint, as an observer of recruiting, you do it for a living, of course. He's been kind of quiet since Tommy Rees moved on, which it seemed like he had a good relationship with Tommy. And now the new offensive coordinator has been announced in Jared Parker. Is there anything to report on how CJ's doing right now?
Yeah, look, I wanted to get on here and let's just talk about CJ Carr. Here's the kind of the timeline. The Reese news breaks. I'm sure tons of media, myself included, were contacting Carr. He's not really responsive. He doesn't want to talk about it. It's his right. Like, sure. I'm sure when that Reese news broke, there was probably 20 reporters contacting him for a comment, as well as like 60 college coaches. Any Power 5 program or Group of 5 even that still needs a 2024 quarterback, I'm sure was contacting Carr. On-3 director of recruiting, Chad Simmons, got to see Carr, I think maybe a week or two after the Reese news to Alabama broke. And Carr says, hey, I'm 100% with Notre Dame. This is not going to change anything. Now you fast forward to the Parker Gaduli news. Carr really hasn't said anything since. I think that he's kind of taken a step back, not from his commitment. I 1000% believe that he's committed. I mean, he still has social media, but he hasn't he did an interview with On3 Sam Spiegelman over the weekend, also at a 707 tournament, and didn't really say anything to give you the warm and fuzzies that he's 1000% locked in, or to make you think that he's decommitting tomorrow. So it's kind of, I think, all of us would. You have this big change. You don't need to rush to any conclusions one way or the other. Just chill, wait it out a little bit. When he's posting on social media these days, it's really just about his 7-on-7 team or his high school team. He's not, super pro Notre Dame, but there's nothing negative. So it's kind of status quo, just in terms of we got to wait and see. So that's where things are at. Now, if you're going to ask me for my opinion and kind of what I'm hearing behind the scenes, Darren, this is going to be fine. He's got to get up to campus. That will happen, I'm sure, this spring. Might not happen in March, but in April. Carr will get to Notre Dame. CJ Carr is a football junkie, Darren. The guy just lives and breathes football. I think if he sits down with Gino Guidugli and Jared Parker, they sell him on the offense and his future, it'll be just fine. Carr's a Notre Dame kid. I don't see him going anywhere else, and I think it's going to be fine at the end of the day. But it's still going to take some work by Notre Dame to get to that point.
So from my observer chair, from what you just said, it feels like that he could have just said to that last reporter, you know what, I'm a Notre Dame commit, looking forward to visiting with them. And that might have cooled all the possible tension. He didn't say anything wrong, but he didn't go out of his way to go back to his normal line, I guess, that he normally talks about with Notre Dame, right?
Yeah, and I want to say this, Darren. This is my profession, right? This is what I do for a living. And we're, dissecting these words of, 16, 17-year-old. I think we all need to just take a step back. It's obviously important. I mean, college football is a big business. Recruiting is a big business. But still, these are children. And we need to, try to not, live and die on each word. Let's just all just take a deep breath, see where things go. Let Carr, be a kid, let him figure this out. And I from a Notre Dame perspective, Darren, I do think it'll work out just fine.
And you know what? As many times as he has come to South Bend, I'm sure there'll be a couple of trips during spring practice where he'll have those opportunities to visit.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. Mike Singer, Darren Pritchett with you, Notre Dame football recruiting update here on Sports Beat and the Blue and Gold YouTube channel. So let's talk about spring practice for a moment. We're just right around the corner from the start of spring practice. As we record this, it's 8 days away. So among the Notre Dame football early enrollees that are on the offensive side of the football, are there a couple of players that you feel like Irish fans should watch closely during spring practice?
I got 3.
Okay.
And they all play the same position. Yeah. It's no secret how excited I am about these receivers at Notre Dame. I feel like, look, the 2021 class was really good at receiver with Styles, Colsey, and Jaden Thomas. To me, this feels like a little like a decent step up. I think the world of Jaden Greathouse. I think that he is going to be a freshman contributor for Notre Dame. Maybe he's not going over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. Who does? But I think he could have a few hundred receiving yards. Catch a couple touchdowns. Like this is a player who, I mean, he's as ready made as they come, Darren. I mean, what he did at the high school level. He had Cade Klubnik as his quarterback, who's the Clemson guy now, but he's fantastic. So he had a really good quarterback throwing the football. But if you are going to be, have a fantastic quarterback, what should you expect to do? It's absolutely dominate, and that's what Greathouse did for 4 years at Austin Westlake. Fantastic talent, big bodied, 6'2", 220 pounds, around that area. And I expect him to be a guy who can play right away in the boundary field slot. Like he can kind of do anything. Drayden Greathouse is a big time talent. Braylon James, I think, might have the highest ceiling of the group. Like he is just his raw ability might be the best, but I think he needs to clean some things up. Like, at the Under Armour All America game practices, he was, a little bit of the drops, routes could, use a little bit of work. But overall, I think he's got the highest ceiling of the group. And then Rico Flores is somewhere in the middle of both of those guys. Like he's got the ready-made talent, but I think the sky's the limit for this kid too. And he's another one who I think could play in the slot. Probably better, more well-suited for it than Greathouse because he's a little bit more shifty. But you talk about Rico Flores and the schools that are after him, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. Braylon James was basically he was headed to Stanford before Chancey Stuckey got hired, and made a big impact in that recruitment. James had a really long offer list: Texas, LSU, and a bunch of other schools. And then Jaden Greathouse, his whole family is Texas fans. And, Texas is just down the road. So Notre Dame beat out, Oklahoma, Texas, South Carolina, along with, that was the Final Four along with Notre Dame. So some big recruiting wins, Darren. These guys are all on campus. They're early enrollees, and they're ready to go.
And just because in past years, freshmen have not gotten on the field much at wide receiver doesn't mean that will be the case with this group. Last time I checked, you get on the field because you've earned it in practice. And if one of these guys performs in practice, Mike, they're going to be out there on the football field because last time I checked, coaches are going to put the best players out there to give them a chance to win, regardless of position or how old they are.
I know Dell Alexander's not a fan favorite, but just think about like the 2020 season when everyone was just losing their minds that Jordan Johnson was not playing.
Yes. Yeah.
And it turns out that it's because he wasn't ready. It maybe wasn't as good as the other receivers. He's done I don't think he's done anything at UCF. Hope for the best for Jordan Johnson. I saw him in person 2 or 3 times. I thought he was an outstanding talent, but clearly just has not worked out for him at the college football level. And I mean, that was a big deal a couple years ago, Darren, was why isn't Brian Kelly playing these freshman wide receivers? And it's like, it's kind of worked out, like I mean, Lorenzo Styles and Deion Colsey, played sparingly as freshmen. These guys need to come along and learn and develop. And, Styles hasn't progressed like we would hope, but Colsey had a really solid season last year. Look at Jaden Thomas. These things just take a little time. But like Styles, I did think coming in that he was a ready-made guy. But for Greathouse and Flores, to me, it's a different level of just how, when you look at their football smarts, their talent, their experience at a high level, I think they're ready to play right now.